Delta, Successful Business Turnaround Strategy by Samantha Whilden. In 1924, Colette Woolman started the first agricultural airplane made for crop dusting to get rid of boll weevils and insects. The operation, as called Huff Land Dusters. By 1928, the crop dusting operation broke away, becoming the Delta Air Service. The Delta Air Service signed contracts delivering mail until 1929, when Delta began flying passengers to Dallas, Jackson, and Mississippi, later adding routes to Charleston and Atlanta. Over the next few years, Delta was awarded airmail contracts by the government, became incorporated, and by World War II in 1941, devoted its time to transporting troops. By 1945, Delta returned to normal service, growing more competitive than ever in the airline industry. By 1992, the economic recession on gas put a hardship on Delta and a heavy debt load with its partner Pan Am, resulting in financing problems. For fiscal year 1991, there was a resultant net loss of $506 million. Because of this, Delta had to take unwanted actions to bring the company back on track financially. To do this, Delta reduced workforce by 5%, cut salaries, and froze wages. In an effort to combat the reduction of air travelers, Delta reduced transatlantic fares by 45%. New routes were added from Los Angeles to Hong Kong. As a result of the shifted focus to overseas routes paid dividends when the company posted a profit of $60 million in the first quarter of 1993 compared to a loss of $125 million in the same quarter the year before. In 1994, Delta saw additional losses, and as a result, they launched the Leadership 7.5 program. This was an initiative to help make operations more efficient. By the early 2000s, Delta Airlines was the third largest airline in the U.S. Following the September 11 attacks, many major carriers in the industry went bankrupt, though Delta was one of the few that managed to stay afloat. In mid-2004, the airline announced that it might have to file for bankruptcy protection if it failed to obtain pay cuts of $1 billion from its pilots, who were the only unionized employees at the airline. By 2004, Delta knew that the new restructuring program would be needed. Although passenger numbers were increasing, Delta's losses were exponential, and the quantum of the losses was rising. In 2004, fuel costs were expected to rise by $680 million, and Delta's cash reserves were rapidly declining. By September of 2004, the airline company announced a major restructuring program that would be implemented to restore the airline's profitability by 2006. This restructuring would involve making operational changes and major cost-cutting initiatives that included the layoff of 7,000 employees over an 18-month period. Delta officials planned to cut 90% of flights to and from Dallas, which led to the closing of the Dallas hub, and a layoff of 2,000 workers. Retained employees were also required to take a deep cut in wages and benefits. Analysts say that Delta's problems were primarily a result of the airline's bloated cost structure and extremely high cost of labor. They said the operational elements of the airline were also more suitable to a time when people were willing to pay a premium for quality air service and had become obsolete in the early 2000s. By the late 90s to the early 2000s, the airline industry had changed, and many older airlines such as Delta found it difficult to adapt to the new paradigm. In 2004, many pilots chose early retirement, which meant pension funds were draining Delta's cash reserves. Additionally, Delta pilots were unionized, and these pilots enjoyed generous work rules, benefits, and furlough protections. According to analysts, it is believed that Delta's excessive pay and benefits for the pilots were main reasons for high labor costs. On October 29, 2008, Delta merged with Northwest Airlines, becoming the world's largest airline with 786 aircrafts. While this merger was a win-win for both companies, it did come with some challenges. Rising fuel costs and changes in the airline industry created a need for close competition among former competitors. The merger allowed the airline to gain large economies of scale and scope, thus increasing operating efficiency and improving the supply chain management. This is a timeline from 1953 until the goals of 2020. I have also presented my references. This is the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching my project on Delta Airlines.